pedo behavior. It all started back in 2018, when fans noticed how close he was with Stranger Things star Millie Bobby Brown, who was only 14 at the time. Millie herself admitted in interviews that Drake would text her, give her boy advice, and even say how much he missed her. What made people uncomfortable wasn't just the friendship, but the fact that Drake was already in his 30s and had absolutely no business texting a teenager like that. Around the same time, there were reports of him being seen with a then 17-year-old model, Bella Harris, who he was rumored to be dating. These stories raised a lot of red flags because while Drake's team never confirmed anything, the optics were bad, and fans started questioning what his intentions really were. Videos later resurfaced of Drake pulling a girl on stage at one of his concerts, kissing her, and then asking how old she was. When she said 17, the crowd pretty much went silent, and Drake quickly tried to play it off by saying she looked grown, but the damage was already done. Clips like this spread across social media and added proof for the belief that Drake blurs the lines when it comes to underage girls. Unlike other celebrities who might stay quiet after controversy, Drake often brushes things off or pretends it's not a big deal, which only makes the backlash stronger. People see the behavior stacking up, and with every new example, it gets harder for fans to defend him. What makes this worse is the way Drake has built a brand around being relatable and friendly, like he's the guy next door rapper who everyone can connect with. But when stories like these come out, it creates a very different image. One of a grown man constantly hovering around younger women in ways that feel suspicious. Even fans who don't believe the worst say the optics alone are enough to make them step back. Fake body. Drake has always presented himself as someone who lives in the gym and works hard to keep his body in shape. But many people don't buy it, and here's why. Rumors started to spread years ago that his abs weren't natural and that he might have had cosmetic surgery to get them. That whole talk about his abs really took off after rapper Joe Budden made a joke about Drake going to a celebrity surgeon in Miami, and fans online started comparing old photos of him to his newer shirtless pictures. In the older shots, Drake looked softer and less defined, but suddenly he appeared with a chiseled six-pack that didn't seem to match the rest of his body. Even DJ academics and other influencers pointed out the strange changes, and the term fake abs became attached to Drake's name. For someone who built part of his image on being authentic, the idea that his muscles were made in a doctor's office instead of a gym was embarrassing, and people haven't let it go. Then, instead of clearly addressing them, Drake usually avoids the topic or throws out little jokes that don't deny anything. This silence has only made people more suspicious. At the same time, fans and fitness experts on social media have broken down how his abs sometimes look too sharp or out of place compared to his natural frame. Side-by-side pictures spread across Instagram and Twitter, showing the difference in his stomach from one year to the next, and each time the conversation comes back. Did Drake get surgery? Some claim he went to a doctor known for sculpting celebrity abs, and the story just won't die. Every time he posts a shirtless photo or shows off at the beach, the comments section is just filled with accusations, jokes, and memes about him having a fake body. The situation has also turned into a running gag in hip-hop circles. Other rappers throw shots about Drake's body, fans bring it up whenever he's trying to show confidence, and critics use it as proof that he's not as real as he pretends to be. In an industry like rap music where image matters almost as much as music, artists can't afford to be known for having a fake body, zesty attitude. From his duck lip selfies to his weird poses on Instagram, fans and critics have joked that he doesn't carry himself like the same man who raps about being dangerous or street-connected. Viral clips show him dancing in exaggerated ways, pouting his lips, or even bending his wrists while posing. And while none of these things are wrong on their own, they clash with the hard-edged persona he wants the world to believe. The internet has a way of pointing out even the smallest detail, and with Drake, every zesty move has turned into a meme. Instead of being seen as playful, these images have been used to call him fake, corny, or even hypocritical. It's not just the selfies and body language either. Over the years, there have been countless memes made from music videos and live performances where Drake shows expressions or movements that fans instantly label as sus. Clips of him singing with emotional faces or swaying with exaggerated hip movements have been looped online for years. In fact, rappers like Pusha T and even anonymous Twitter accounts use those same clips to clown him whenever a new beef pops up. On top of that, photos of him with pursed lips or flamboyant outfits spread like wildfire, leading to accusations that he tries too hard to look stylish but ends up looking questionable. While many artists have embraced fluidity or breaking stereotypes, with Drake it sparks backlash because he sells himself as hyper-masculine in his lyrics. Yet his public image sometimes tells a different story. The zesty label has also been weaponized against him by his own fans and enemies alike. Online threads break down every single picture where he looks too soft, every Instagram pose that seems more like a fashion influencer than a global rap star, and every mannerism that doesn't match the alpha male act. TikTok edits exaggerate his movements to show the contrast between his words and his image. For a rapper constantly trying to prove his authenticity, even though Drake just brushes it off, the nickname Zesty Drake hasn't gone away. Targets his ops women. Instead of keeping beefs about music or direct insults, Drake slides in references about his rivals' girlfriends, wives, or even exes. It's a tactic that feels more personal than lyrical, and it has earned him a reputation for being petty. Back in his feud with Common, Drake took shots that many fans thought were aimed at Common's then-girlfriend Serena Williams. Even when Common clapped back with the famous Stay Schemin' diss, Drake's involvement felt less about rap skill and more about poking at a man's love life. That type of strategy has basically followed him through every stage of his career. The biggest example, of course, is the never-ending back and forth with Kanye West. Drake has made countless jabs that seem to be about Kim Kardashian, from lyrics that hint at him being with her, to subliminals that suggest he had something on the side. Whether it's true or not, the constant teasing about Kanye's wife kept the feud alive and made it messier than it needed to be. He's done similar things with other rappers too. Future, Meek Mill, and even random artists have had to face Drake targeting their women in his songs. It gives him more headlines, but it also makes people question why he always chooses to do that. The habit has become so well known that it's almost expected in every Drake beef. Fans will instantly look through his new songs, looking for references to somebody else's girl, ready to connect the dots. For many of them, it feels like a really low move. Instead of standing toe-to-toe with other rappers, he drags women into fights they didn't ask for. That's why some say he doesn't just target his ops in battles, he targets their women too, making things way more personal than necessary and feeding the image of Drake as someone who always goes for the most emotional angle instead of keeping it strictly music. Beefs with women. Drake's history of beef with women in the music industry is almost as long as his career itself. One of the earliest messy moments came with Rihanna. After years of being linked together, their on and off relationship got very public when Rihanna distanced herself from him, saying she didn't even want to be associated with him. What made it worse is that Drake often referenced her in interviews and songs, while she seemed to brush him off, making it look one-sided and awkward. Things only got more complicated when he performed with her at the VMAs and tried to kiss her on stage, which she dodged in front of millions of people. That move turned into a viral moment and painted Drake as someone who couldn't let go. Another serious beef came with Nicki Minaj. For years, they were close as label mates under Lil Wayne, but when Drake's issues with Meek Mill exploded, Nicki naturally sided with her then-boyfriend. What followed was a public falling out between her and Drake. At one point, Nicki unfollowed him and even stopped speaking to him, which fans noticed instantly. Drake, instead of letting things stay private, began throwing lines in his music that hinted at their broken friendship. For someone who had always presented himself as Nicki's biggest supporter, the sudden distance looked ugly, and it made headlines about how Drake can't seem to keep strong female connections without drama creeping in. Drake has also had messy spats with newer women in the industry. With Megan Thee Stallion, he faced huge backlash after rapping a line on his song, Circo Loco, that many fans took as him mocking her shooting incident with Tory Lanez. Megan quickly fired back on Twitter, calling out rappers for using her trauma as a punchline, and the internet dragged Drake for days. Fans even believe she accused him of having fake abs in one of her viral songs, and that just added to the whole beef. Then there's his situation with Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian, where Drake called him a groupie in a track years after his rumored fling with Serena ended. It showed how he keeps dragging women he isn't cool with into lyrics long after the relationships are over. Beefs other men over women. One of the earliest and most famous examples was with Chris Brown over Rihanna. In 2012, their feud turned violent in a New York nightclub. Reports say their crews exchanged bottles, chairs, and punches, leaving people injured and the club wrecked. At the heart of it all was their mutual history with Rihanna, and both Drake and Chris were accused of fueling the tension by taking shots at each other in songs, interviews, and even social media posts. That single night created one of the most high-profile love triangle beefs in hip-hop history, with Rihanna stuck in the middle as the unspoken reason for the fight. Another example is Drake's beef with Common, just like him targeting his ops women. Their feud started in 2011 when Common dropped subliminal disses on his album, widely believed to be aimed at Drake's soft and emotional style. But behind the surface, many linked the tension to Serena Williams, whom Drake was rumored to be dating around the same time Common had been involved with her. What could have been a simple stylistic rivalry turned into a messy personal fight that got mentioned in tracks like Common's Stay Skemmin' remix, where he directly called Drake out. Drake fired back with his own jabs, and the back and forth showed once again how women tied to Drake often become the trigger for explosive beefs. Even with male artists outside his immediate circle, Drake has dragged personal relationships into his conflicts. With Pusha T, their beef was mostly about rap credibility and hidden secrets, but Pusha didn't hold back from bringing up Drake's history with women, painting him as reckless with relationships and loyalty, and more recently, in subliminal shots aimed at men like The Weeknd or A$AP Rocky. The undercurrent of competition often ties back to women's attention, whether through lyrics about stealing someone's girl or suggesting he's the one women prefer. Exploits artists. Drake has built a reputation for jumping on the wave of new artists, and while some call it support, many accuse him of exploiting their growing fame. The pattern usually looks the same. An underground artist starts making some noise, then Drake suddenly appears on a remix or co-signs them. At first, this boosts the artist's visibility, but over time, the spotlight tends to shift back to Drake, with the smaller artist fading away. A famous example is McConaughey, who had a breakout hit with Tuesday. When Drake hopped on the remix, the track blew up worldwide, but McConaughey's career never took off afterward, while Drake walked away with another major hit tied to his name. This pattern repeats with artists across the globe. In the UK, Drake attached himself to grime stars like Skepta and Giggs, and later to drill rappers like Heady One. In the Caribbean, he tapped into dancehall and Afro beats by working with Popcaan, Wizkid, and others. Fans notice that Drake often leans into the sound of the artist he works with, borrowing their slang, cadence, or culture, then includes it in his own music as if he invented it. Wizkid's Ojuelegba remix put Afro beats on the global map, but many critics say Drake benefited far more from that collab than Wizkid did, especially since Drake rarely credits collaborators properly in interviews. Even in North America, younger rappers have felt this effect. Blockboy JB's career peaked when Drake hopped on Look Alive, but after the hype, Blockboy struggled to stay relevant, while Drake scored another chart hit. The Migos breakout hit Versace had a similar story. Drake's remix got more attention than the original, overshadowing the group's early rise. To many fans, this has turned into a very obvious pattern. Drake positions himself as the kingmaker, but instead of lifting artists long-term, he uses their moment to boost his own dominance, leaving them behind once he's done. Crybaby behavior. Drake often comes off like a sore loser when things don't go his way. In rap, beef is normal, but instead of brushing things off with confidence, Drake has a habit of acting wounded and constantly circling back to the same arguments. When Pusha T exposed Drake's secret son in 2018, most rappers would have either clapped back with equal force or moved on quietly. Instead, Drake kept referencing it for years, using interviews and even songs to explain himself over and over again, almost like he was begging for sympathy. Fans saw this as a weakness in a music genre that respects sharp comebacks and strength. Instead of leaving the beef behind, he gave it extra life by replaying his side of the story, which made him look more like a crybaby than a warrior. This behavior shows up in other conflicts Drake has too. With Kanye West, the back and forth dragged on for years, but Drake's approach often felt less like sharp disses and more like subtle complaints, sneaky jabs, or long rants about how he was wronged. Even when he had the upper hand musically, he couldn't resist whining about how unfairly he was treated behind the scenes. The same thing happened with Meek Mill after the famous back-to-back diss, which was a career highlight. Drake still kept revisiting the beef in songs and interviews, almost like he couldn't let the moment go. Fans drafted to notice that while other rappers moved forward, Drake seemed stuck on proving he was the victim, always needing to explain his side instead of just standing tall. This crybaby behavior continues even outside of rap beefs. Whenever the media or fans criticize him, Drake often addresses it in his music by complaining rather than owning it with swagger. Whether it's people clowning his sports team affiliations, questioning his image, or calling out his use of ghostwriters, he constantly slips into songs that sound like long diary entries about how misunderstood he is. Instead of brushing off hate like a star at his level should, he pours energy into venting about being doubted. Corny and inauthentic image. Drake has always struggled with the label of being corny, and a lot of it comes from how he tries to wear so many identities that don't fully fit him. At first, he was the sensitive, heartbreak rapper, singing about feelings while other rappers bragged about street life. That set him apart, but it also made him look soft in a culture that values toughness. As his career grew, he started mixing in different personas: the tough guy, the ladies' man, the mob boss, even the Caribbean or UK slang user. Fans began noticing how quickly he was to switch accents, styles, and images depending on where he was or who he was standing next to. Instead of looking versatile, it started to look like he was faking it. The constant shape-shifting made him seem like a performer playing dress-up, not someone who naturally embodied the culture. The more famous he got, the more this inauthentic vibe became hard to ignore. When he rapped about being a gangster or tied himself to street credibility, critics reminded everyone that he grew up in suburban Toronto and started as a teen actor on Degrassi. Unlike rappers with real backgrounds in that lifestyle, Drake's version felt borrowed. That's why some of his toughest lyrics get laughed at online, turned into memes instead of being taken seriously. Even in fashion and style, he often jumps on whatever trend is hot: braids, jewelry, slang, or new slang-heavy flows. But instead of leading culture, he looks like he's chasing it. This is why fans and even other rappers often call him corny, because he rarely sticks with one authentic identity long enough for people to believe it's really him. Even his attempts at being funny or charming sometimes backfire. Drake loves to be playful in interviews, on stage or on Instagram, but instead of landing as cool, a lot of it comes across as awkward or forced. Just think about the over-the-top jokes or the times he tries to act street with rappers who actually lived that life. Fans instantly sense the gap between who Drake really is and who he wants to appear as. Over the years, this has become one of the main reasons people turn on him. Sure, they respect his hits and his success, but they don't fully buy into the image he's selling because it feels built in a studio instead of grown in real life. And in rap, nothing is worse than being called fake. Overexposure. Drake's biggest strength has also turned into one of his biggest problems. He never disappears. Since his breakout in 2009, Drake has dropped album after album, feature after feature, and single after single, barely taking a break. At first, this made him unstoppable. Every summer had a Drake anthem, every playlist had his voice, and every award show had him in the spotlight. But over time, the constant stream of content started to feel less special. Even fans who once couldn't get enough began to say his music feels repetitive, like the same themes are recycled over and over. When an artist is everywhere all the time, the excitement fades, and people stop waiting for the next drop because they know another one is coming almost immediately. It's not just the music either. Drake inserts himself into every space: hip-hop, R&B, dancehall, UK drill, Afro beats, reggaeton, even house music. Instead of letting those genres shine on their own, he takes a piece of each, stamps his name on it, and pushes it to the mainstream. While that helped him dominate globally, it also rubbed fans the wrong way. People started calling him a culture vulture for jumping on whatever sound was trending instead of sticking to his own lane. For die-hard fans of those scenes, Drake showing up often feels more like exploitation than collaboration. It creates a sense that he's spreading himself thin, trying to own every sound at once, and in the process, losing the core identity that made him exciting at the beginning. On top of that, his face is everywhere in the media. Whether it's memes, viral interviews, social media antics, public beefs, gambling streams, or non-stop paparazzi photos, there's never a break from Drake's presence. When you combine non-stop albums, constant features, and 24/7 visibility, he's everywhere. Some fans even say they feel burned out, as if Drake is more of a brand machine than an artist. This level of saturation makes it hard for even loyal supporters to stay excited. They still listen, but the magic wears off when an artist becomes impossible to escape. Drake has reached a point where people aren't just judging his music, they're exhausted by his entire presence. What other reason do you think is why everyone is turning on Drake? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then hit the like button and share it with everyone you know who would love to see it. If you'd like more videos like this, then subscribe to our channel and hit the notification icon so you don't miss our next videos.